I remember the sound of the heart monitor more clearly than I remember my own name in those first days. The beeping, the oxygen hiss, the white lights burning through my eyelids. And the voices. Always the voices. My mom's voice was the very first one I heard when consciousness flickered somewhere deep inside me, a place where I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes, but could hear every word like they were being carved into me. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. Doctors waste money on cases like hers, she said. If she dies, she dies. God closes useless chapters all the time. My dad's voice followed, tired, irritated, like my existence inconvenienced him even from a coma. Pull the plug and let's get home. We've got better things to do than babysit a vegetable. They talked about dinner plans while I hovered between life and death. They debated what my sister Haley should wear to some influencer event she'd been invited to. They laughed about how dramatic the nurses were, acting like my life mattered. And then, the words that cut deeper than the car crash ever did. She's always been extra, Mom muttered. Look at her now, sleeping for attention. Dad snorted. She finally found a way to be quiet. I'm not complaining. I screamed inside my own skull. I clawed at a body that wouldn't move. I tried to force one finger to twitch, one toe to return to me, but I was trapped. Trapped while my parents told strangers that they hoped I wouldn't wake up. For 2 weeks they visited like that, 10 minutes at a time, mostly to ask the staff stupid questions like how much longer before the hospital stopped charging for me, or if insurance would cover any losses. The nurses pitied me. I could feel it in their voices. But pity didn't save me. The 5th night, when the storm hit, I heard the door slide open again. Mom and Dad stepped in with wet jackets and Haley behind them, complaining loudly that the hospital smelled like old people in failure. Haley walked toward my bed, looked down at my face, and laughed. She looked so ugly with her mouth open like that. You! Mom didn't even pretend to be disgusted by the comment. Well, she never looked like a winner anyway. The doctor said if she wakes up, she might be slow or confused. Imagine that. As if she wasn't already behind in life. Dad checked his watch. Are we done? We should tell them we're not paying for extended care. It's her fault she crashed. That's what happens when you try to chase opportunities that never belonged to you. What opportunities? They didn't know anything about my life. Not about the startup I built. Not about the private acquisition deal. Not about the shocking number attached to it. Not about the $850 million waiting for my signature. I had never told them because they had never cared. When they left that night, I felt something inside me collapse. A kind of death that wasn't physical. A kind that made you see yourself differently. To them, I wasn't a daughter. I was a burden, a body, a noise, a responsibility they wished would disappear. 2 more days passed. Their visits stopped. No calls, no questions. The nurses whispered that my parents had signed a conditional consent to withdraw support if my condition didn't improve. They were, literally, waiting for me to die. And then something snapped awake inside me. It happened at dawn when the night shift nurse whispered, "Fight if you can hear me. Fight for you, not for them." A flicker, a twitch, a spark. My fingers moved. The next day, I opened my eyes, and the first thing I felt was rage, not the fiery kind, the cold kind, the kind that freezes your spine and sharpens your thoughts until they're knives. I didn't tell anyone yet that I had regained full awareness. I didn't ask for my parents. I didn't ask for Haley. Instead, I asked for my phone. The nurse placed it in my hands gently. With trembling fingers, I opened my secure email and saw it. Acquisition contract, pending your signature. The number glowed like a burning sun. 850,000. My entire life had changed, without them knowing, and I kept it that way. I had the pen, I had the power, I had the choice, and the moment I was discharged, quiet, unnoticed, ignored. I signed the deal. I became a multimillionaire in silence. I bought nothing flashy. I told no one. I moved into a private penthouse under an alias. I made sure every trace of me vanished. 2 months later, after they assumed I had wandered off to be dramatic, rumors began to spread. Rumors that their useless daughter wasn't just alive, but wealthy. And that's when they showed up. At my old apartment, at my workplace, at every relative's house. They dragged Haley with them, sobbing and fake shaking like she had suddenly decided she cared. "We forgive you," Mom announced loudly to anyone who would listen. "We just want her to come home." Dad nodded dramatically. "We're a family. We belong together." Haley sniffled. "She owes us a reunion. We supported her through everything." Supported. They used that word like they had ever lifted a finger for me. Their act was so pathetic it was almost funny. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't finished letting them taste the consequences of what they had taught me from childhood. That to them, I was disposable. But to me, they were unforgettable. Because I had a plan. One that would not be poetic. One that would not be silent. One that would not be gentle. A plan they would never recover from. A plan that would make them understand what it felt like to be abandoned in the dark, waiting to die. And I hadn't even begun. The first thing I remember after waking up from the coma was the weight of the room. Machines hummed around me. My chest hurt. My throat tasted like metal. A nurse gasped when she saw my eyes open, like she genuinely didn't expect me to return. I wasn't surprised. I hadn't expected to return either, but what hit me harder than the pain, harder than the memory of swerving my car to avoid the truck that ran the red light, harder than the 2 weeks missing from my life, was the realization that no one was there. No mom, no dad, no sister, no family. Just the quiet celebration of a medical team who had done their job, while the people who created me couldn't be bothered. "Do you want me to call your emergency contacts?" the nurse asked softly. I stared at her, my voice scraping out like gravel. "They didn't come?" She hesitated. That hesitation was the kind that tells you everything. "Your parents visited the first night. Briefly. They didn't stay. They said they had obligations." Obligations. That was the word my mom used when she didn't want to deal with me. Obligations was her code for "you matter less." The nurse lowered her voice. "They signed the paperwork to refuse extended responsibility for your care. Usually families are, well, more involved." I nodded slowly, my chest tightening. "They left me." Yes. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink hard. The truth wasn't new. This was who they always were. Cruel, neglectful, dismissive in ways that cut deeper than violence ever could. But hearing it, seeing it in real actions, when I was literally on the brink of death, it carved a hollow into my ribs that something dark crawled into. I recovered in silence. Physical therapy, breathing exercises, doctors explaining fractures, concussions, recovery timelines. No visitors. My phone was found shattered at the crash site. No one brought a charger. No one asked to see me. My sister didn't even text the hospital landline. By day 9, I was discharged with a bag of medications, a brace, and a taxi voucher handed to patients with no reliable family support. The hospital had labeled me correctly. The apartment felt haunted when I finally walked in, like the shadow of who I was before the coma had died in the crash. I sat on the couch, replaying everything, trying to accept the new silence wrapped around me. 3 days later, it was broken by a very familiar pounding on my door. Mom, then Dad, then my sister Brielle. All three looking like they arrived for a photo shoot, not to check on a daughter who almost died. Mom pushed inside first without waiting. She always moved like the world owed her space. "Oh, thank God you're awake," she said, brushing past me. We were starting to get worried sick. I stared at her flatly. "You weren't at the hospital once." Dad scoffed, throwing his jacket on my couch like he owned the place. "We assumed you'd either make it or not. Hovering wouldn't change the outcome." My stomach lurched. "What?" Brielle rolled her eyes as she opened my fridge. "You're fine." Drama. Queen. They didn't come for support. They came for something. I felt it immediately. The air changed when people want something. Mom took out a folded paper from her purse. placed it on my coffee table, and slid it toward me with a smile sharp enough to slice skin. "We saw something interesting," she said. "It was a news article about the tech startup I co-founded, about the valuation, about the acquisition offer, about the funds in escrow under my name." $850 million, Dad said, whistling like he was complimenting a sports car. "Our smart little investment finally paid off." I blinked slowly. "Investment?" "You," Mom snapped. "What do you think? Your education, your roof, your childhood, everything we gave you. We're here to discuss our share." My throat tightened. "Your share of what?" Brielle leaned against the wall, smirking the way she did when she bullied kids in school. "Don't play dumb. You owe them. And honestly, I deserve some too. You know the deal. Family wins together." I looked at each of them, feeling something unstable flicker in my chest. They weren't worried I was almost dead. They were worried they might miss the payday. "So, let's talk," Dad said, sitting back. "We'll take 70%. You keep 30. It's generous. We figured you'd want to thank us after the accident." I froze. "Thank you? For what?" "For raising you," Mom said slowly, like I was stupid. "For not pulling the plug. For letting you live long enough to get rich." My vision went tight at the edges. I tasted metal again. They didn't come for me. They came for my money. My coma wasn't a tragedy to them. It was an inconvenience that paused their chance to cash out. "I'm not giving you anything," I whispered. The room froze. Dad leaned forward. "Don't test me." "I nearly died," I said. "You didn't even bring a flower." Brielle snorted. "Because flowers don't pay bills." Mom slapped the coffee table so hard it made me flinch. "Cut the attitude. You owe us. And you will sign what we brought. Now." They thought I was still the same girl they controlled, the one who begged for crumbs of affection, the one who still believed family meant something, but the coma, the silence, the abandonment. Something in me had hardened into steel. I sat back slowly. "You really think you can force me?" Dad's jaw clenched. "We already talked to lawyers. We have ways to pressure you. You're emotional, unstable. Your accident proves you're unfit to manage money. Your sister will help handle things." My dead laugh filled the room. "Ah, so the parasite wants the host," Brielle hissed. "You don't deserve a cent." Mom stood up, pointing in my face. "If you won't cooperate, we'll make you. You're weak, alone. You need us." I shook my head. "No, I needed you when I was dying, and you walked away." For the first time. Something flickered in their eyes. Not guilt, annoyance. Like my survival was ruining their plans. "Last chance," Dad said. I smiled slowly. Not sweet, not scared. A smile that told them they were already too late. They didn't know what I had already set in motion. They didn't know the paperwork I signed the second I woke up. They didn't know the plan I had built from the ashes of my coma. A plan that made their visit today nothing more than a pathetic performance. "Get out," I whispered. Mom laughed coldly. "We'll be back when you're thinking straight." I looked her dead in the eyes. "No, you won't." They left in a storm of insults. Ungrateful, useless, pathetic, broken. But for the first time in my entire life, their words didn't cut, because they had no idea. I had already moved everything. I had already erased access. I had already vanished on paper. Their greed came too late, and soon they would learn just how late. I watched them through the hospital window before they even knew I was awake. My mother dragging my father by the wrist, my sister behind them like a trophy they polished for years. They weren't crying, they weren't shaken, they weren't relieved I survived. They were arguing about numbers. $850 million, my mother hissed, fixing her hair like she was preparing for a gala instead of her daughter's ICU room. "Do you know what we could do with that? That money belongs to the family. She doesn't even use her life properly." My father clicked his tongue. "Let's just sign whatever papers we need. She's in a coma. No one will question it." My sister laughed the way she always did when she knew cruelty was coming. "If she dies again, we can claim everything. Maybe we'll finally get something useful out of her." Their footsteps echoed before the door swung open. The shock on their faces when they saw me sitting upright was the first satisfaction I had felt in months. Mom froze. Dad choked on his words. My sister actually stepped back. You're awake? My dad stuttered. I smiled, calm and cold. Long enough to hear what you really came for. Mom's voice cracked. Honey, you don't understand. You left me to die, I cut in quietly. Then you showed up for the money. My sister rolled her eyes. Stop being dramatic. Sign it over. You don't deserve that kind of wealth. I stood up. Every wire taped to my skin tugged, but nothing hurt as much as their existence. That $850 secret you want? I said. It's gone. Their faces collapsed. What do you mean, gone? My father barked. You idiot. I sold everything, I said. Every share, every patent, every investment, converted, moved, closed, erased. My sister lunged forward. Where is it? I stepped past them toward the hallway. Not here, I said. Not yours. Never will be. Mom grabbed my arm. We made you! That money is our right! I turned to her with a calmness that terrified all three of them. You taught me what I needed to survive and what to leave behind. Security appeared in seconds because I had already asked them to wait outside. They escorted my parents and sister out of the ICU while my mother screamed, my father threatened, and my sister cried like a child denied dessert. They still don't know where I went. They never will. Because I didn't vanish for safety. I vanished for peace, something they were never built to give. And the best part? They'll spend the rest of their lives chasing money that doesn't exist, and a daughter who finally learned how to disappear on her own terms. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.